Okay, continuing, we have the core activity. It says write an equation that you could solve to find the distance you drove if the cost of the rental is $35.80. So if you remember our equation, we had the rental, which is R, is equal to $24.95 plus 5 cents per mile. Okay, now what is it that they're giving us? They're giving us the cost of the rental, which is $35.80. Okay, so think about where we will place $35.80. Okay, I hope you guys said R because you would be correct. So I'm going to go ahead and write $35.80 is equal to $24.95 plus 5 cents per mile. Okay, so they want us to solve for the distance, which would be miles. So we need to get M all by itself. Okay, so and we have this and this along with the M. We need to clear this stuff out. Okay, so again, we're going to subtract the $24.95 first. And to keep my equation balanced, I have to do the same thing to the other side. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and subtract here. It's going to be 7. That's 5. I have to borrow. 17 minus 9 is 8. 4 minus 4 is 0. And 3 minus 2 is 1. Is equal to, this is 0. So 0 plus 0.05 m. I don't have to worry about 0. Nothing is the same thing as 0. So I've got nothing, and I have this 0.05 m. Okay, so what should I do next? Right here, I have multiply by 0.05 m. I need to get rid of multiply by 0.05 m. So the opposite of multiplying would be to divide by 0.05. Okay, 0.05 divided by 0.05 is 1. Okay, 0.05 divided by 0.05 is 1. 1 times m is m. Now on this side, I have $10.85. Divide that by 5 cents. So you guys can go ahead and type that out onto your calculator or go ahead and divide it out. Okay, I'll give you guys a second to type that out. Okay, and the answer is 217. All right, let's go ahead and move on. We have number 2. Show how to find the solution of your equation in question 1 using each of these 4 methods. So if you notice up here, we have 217 miles. I'm going to make a table here. And right about here, I'm going to put 217 miles. The cost was $35.80. Okay, so in my table, I'm going to go ahead and fill in some of these numbers here. So I'm going to say, what if I drove 216 miles? About 215, 214, 213. I'm going to go down this way as well. Okay. So if I drove 217 miles and this was a charge, if I drove another mile, well, that's going to cost me another nickel. So what's another nickel more than 35.80? Well, that would be 35.85. And if you add another nickel for the next mile, you'll get 35.90. And of course, we're going to go backwards as well. So you're going to go back 5 cents. So this would be 35. This is one less mile. So we're going to go one less nickel here. And repeat up here as well. And I'm going to have you guys go ahead and fill out the rest of the chart. And the rest of your chart should look like this. Notice I'm going up by a nickel every time. Okay, so now we need to use a graph. Okay, without driving any miles at all, we know that it's going to cost $24.95. So if we look at our graph here, this is at 0 miles, right? At 0 miles, they're going to charge us $24.95. Well, here's 20, 30, this is 24. So it's just going to be just barely below 25. Okay, and we have some numbers here. Let's use those. We have 213, which is about, here's 200, here's 225. So right about in the middle. At 213, the charge is going to be 35.60, which is right about just barely above 35. So I'm going to go ahead and make a point right there. Now, once you have 2 points, you can make a line. So I'm going to go ahead and get my line tool here. And make that line. Okay, so I have my line tool. I'm going to place a dot here. And I'm going to extend it all the way out this way, but I need to make sure that it hits that second line there. And there we go. We just made the graph. Now we need to do this by undoing. Okay. If the total cost is 35.80, how can I work backwards to find the miles driven? Okay, so our total cost is 35.80. And remember, just for renting the car without going anywhere, just for renting it, it costs $24.95. So I need to subtract $24.95. I'm going to go ahead and subtract. I'm going to have to borrow here. 10 minus 5 is 5. Have to borrow again. 17 minus 9 is 8. 4 minus 4 is 0. 3 minus 2 is 10. So 10.85. But we still need to figure out the miles, right? So they charged us $10.85 for the amount of miles we drove. Okay, so with this $10.85, I'm going to have to divide that. I have to find out how many nickels that is. So I have to divide this by 0.05. I'll go ahead and write that here. And our answer is 217 miles. Okay, now we need to use algebraic operations. So I have 3580 equals 0.05 m plus 24.95. And I'll show you guys an illustration from the online book. Okay, so here is the illustration that the book gives us. This is right here in your book. And we're going to go ahead and let the computer explain this to you. Okay, so now what steps should you should you take to isolate the variable m? Okay, so be thinking about that. We want to get m by itself. So what's the first thing we should do here? I'm going to go ahead and play the next animation. We need to get rid of that 2495. And that's called the subtraction property of equality. Okay, so our first step was to subtract 2495. Okay, that will eliminate this, and we end up with 0.05 m. Over here, we end up with 1085. Now, when you subtract on both sides, that's called subtraction property of equality. Okay, let's go ahead and continue. Think about what our next step should be. We need to divide. When you divide on both sides, that's called division property of equality. Anytime you do something on both sides, you're going to see something that says of equality. Okay. Up here, we subtracted on both sides, property of equality. Divide by both sides, division property of equality. And the last step, we're going to simplify this. 1 times m is just m. And then 1085, divide that by 0.05 is 217. And we will go to the next video to continue. We'll be on question number 3. And I will see you in the next video.